usually at the first part of the day, we're going to have that stand-up meeting. This tends to happen earlier in the day, but the reality is the purpose of a stand-up meeting, regardless of whether we're talking Agile or not, is to allow the team to talk about what's going on at a time that's convenient for the team. If 9 a.m. doesn't work for the team, don't do 9 a.m. Pick some other time. It's just sometimes easier to start this early in the morning. That way you can follow through on stuff instead of later in the day where you'll have to take it up tomorrow morning. So in this example, I'm developer 2. And as a part of a stand-up, we have these different roles here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go around the table, or in most cases now, the virtual room, and everyone's going to say what they did yesterday, what they're working on today, and if they have any trouble. The important part here is that the only people that are going to speak during this are going to be the people executing work, which means that if you're a scrum master or a product owner or some other role that's in leadership or support, you're not really going to have any part of this individual status. If you need to intervene or need to talk about something, you're going to take that into a breakout session. And so the order generally is whatever, but we'll start with Dev 1, who's the lead. And when they speak, they're giving some status that's not entirely pertinent to you as developer 2, talking about, hey, I'm still working on that Okta login thing. What's that? That's the ability to use single sign-on for our company's corporate portal to be able to log into the individual application we're working on. I don't have any trouble, but I probably need a couple more days on this to really figure it out and get it implemented. Next, we'll go over to the QE, or quality engineer. Again, this isn't related to really what Dev 2 wants, but we always want to listen to make sure in case there's something that is involved with what we're doing. In this case, the QE says, yesterday I started working on this new web-based testing framework, which is using this Selenium-based framework known as Robot in order to automate how a user interacts with our site so we can better do regression testing instead of having to do it manually. Now it's time for Dev 2. That's us in this perspective. And for a couple of days now, we've been trying to work on this performance bottleneck issue, but we're stuck. We're really not sure how this was found. How do I fix it? What are the implications? I'm missing some details. So in our status, we're going to say, I'm working on researching how the REST template usage inside of our framework is becoming a performance bottleneck when reaching out to third-party systems. However, it's not clear to me what are the implications for how this works. And so if someone who knows more about this, the person who ended up writing this work, can you talk to me after the stand-up? After that, we're done. We've all given our statuses. Scrum Master or Project Manager has taken any notes they may need to. Product Owner is paying attention to what's going on. And now it's time to go into our breakout discussion for Developer 2. So we start our breakout discussion and we determine the membership at the end of the stand-up where the lead developer chimes in, hey, I was the one that figured this out using metrics for our distributed tracing. And the product owner speaks up and says, I'm interested, but also I was the one that was involved in figuring this out by submitting multiple purchase orders. So the discussion starts, and it starts with the developer, us in this case, developer 2, saying, how do I test this? You know, I know there's a problem, and I have a good idea of where to fix it, but once I do it, how do I actually test this, and how do I know what's really going on? And so the product owner chimes in, well, you do this by submitting multiple purchase orders. And then the lead developer chimes in with some more details relating to what they're actually working on. In this case, they're working in a very specific technology stack, and that's where the terminology comes from. And it's something like REST template. The way in which we're doing web-to-web communication is single-threaded, which means that when you call it, if someone else calls it at the same time, it has to wait for that first call to finish before the second one can start. The end result is that when they looked at the metrics for individual endpoint response times in production, they found that the more an individual endpoint was called, the longer it took to respond. This linear behavior of response time indicates that bottleneck. More specifically, they say, well, the way this is really working is, of course, you have your web portal, which the user's doing stuff in, and every time they do something, it's communicating with this backend we're calling a backend for front end. The case where this is the problem, though, is when our backend for front end has to make a call out to any third-party service, whether it's, in this case, submitting a purchase order or something else. So what's happening is if we submit a bunch of purchase orders across different users, the way that we're calling that third party using REST template is causing that performance bottleneck. So what we're asking to do here is to replace the underlying mechanism by which the BFF calls that third party. Once developer 2 is comfortable enough with the understanding of what's going on, we'll stop the breakout discussion and they'll try and get back to work.